Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to build a complete foundational mastery of how our bodies control and coordinate literally every single thing we do. Have you ever wondered how you instantly pull your hand away from a hot stove without even thinking about it? Or how you can effortlessly keep your balance on a bicycle? Well, it all comes down to an incredible, high-speed biological communication network right inside you. So let's dive right in and figure out how this whole shebang actually works.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with Section 1, Detecting the World. Then, 2, Meet the Neuron. 3, the speedy reflex arc. 4, Inside the human brain. 5, Armor for the system. And finally, 6, How muscles take action. Basically, we are going to track a single signal from the outside world all the way through your wiring to a physical reaction.
All right, Section 1, Detecting the World. Let's start our journey at the absolute very beginning, how information actually gets into your system in the first place.
To understand this, I want you to imagine doing Activity 6.1 from your textbook right now. If you pop a spoonful of sugar in your mouth, it tastes super sweet, right? But what if you completely pinch your nose shut and then eat that same sugar? You're going to notice something totally weird. You actually can't fully appreciate the taste. You've probably experienced this exact same thing when you've had a really bad cold and suddenly your favorite food tastes, well, kind of like cardboard. The why behind that little mystery all comes down to receptors. You can think of receptors as highly specialized biological sensors located inside our sense organs. So you have gustatory receptors on your tongue, specifically designed to detect taste, and olfactory receptors in your nose designed to catch smells. They actually have to work together as a team to give you a full flavor profile. When your nose is blocked up, those olfactory sensors go offline, and the data being sent up to your brain is basically incomplete.
Section 2, Meet the Neuron. Now that our bodily receptors have actually detected a signal from the outside world, like the taste of sugar or the heat of a flame, let's zoom way in to the microscopic level to see exactly how that signal moves around.
Meet the absolute star of the show, the neuron. This is the fundamental wiring of your biology, and it has a really unique structure. Right at the center, you've got a cell body with a prominent round nucleus. Sprouting off that main body are these branched, root-like projections called dendrites. Then, extending all the way out is this incredibly long cable known as the axon, which ends in a bunch of tiny nerve endings. The whole thing is built specifically to transmit signals across long distances.
Let's trace a spark right through this wire. Environmental info kicks off a chemical reaction right at the very tip of the dendrite. This creates an actual electrical impulse that shoots into the cell body and then races all the way down that long axon cable. But here is the crazy part. Neurons do not physically touch each other. There's a tiny microscopic gap between them called a synapse. So when that electrical impulse hits the end of the axon, it releases specific chemicals. These chemicals act like a bridge, drifting across the synapse gap to spark a brand new electrical impulse in the next neuron. It's essentially a high-speed electrochemical relay race. Section 3, the speedy reflex arc. Okay, so that's the normal relay race. But what happens when that incoming signal is an absolute code-red emergency, say accidentally touching a burning hot pan? Well, if you look at the comparison here, a normal relay race might just be too slow. Conscious thinking is an incredibly complex activity. It involves dense, intricately woven networks of neurons inside your brain. Receiving a signal, passing it all around those dense networks to figure out what it means, and then deciding to send a signal back to your muscles, well, that takes precious fractions of a second. If we actually had to consciously think, oh, my fingers are detecting extreme heat, I'm experiencing pain, I should probably instruct my arm muscles to move right now, we would get severely burned. To prevent that kind of severe injury, our bodies evolved the reflex arc. It is the ultimate shortcut. Instead of setting that screaming hot signal all the way up to the thinking, calculating part of the brain, the sensory nerve carries it straight to the spinal cord. Right there in the spine, a relay neuron instantly passes the message directly over to a motor nerve, and boom, that motor nerve fires a signal right back down to your arm muscle to pull away. It completely bypasses the brain's slow processing time. You will definitely feel the pain a split second later when your brain finally gets the memo, but by then, your hand is already safe.
So the absolute crucial takeaway here is the underlying why. Reflex arcs evolved because, in urgent, life-or-death moments, true thought processes are just too slow for immediate survival.
Actually, many animals out there in the wild rely almost entirely on these reflex arcs because they don't even possess the complex neuron networks required for deep thinking. It's just a brilliant evolutionary failsafe.
Section 4. Inside the human brain. Of course, as human beings, we aren't just reacting to hot pans all day long, right? We are highly complex thinking creatures. We talk, we solve math problems, we play sports, and that brings us to the Grand Command Center itself. Your brain is highly specialized into distinct departments. The forebrain is your main thinking and sensory center. It even houses the very specific area that lets you know when you're feeling full after a meal. Then you've got the hindbrain. A part of it called the medulla quietly runs all your background involuntary tasks, like maintaining your blood pressure and your heartbeat without you ever having to think about it. And if you've ever wondered how you can ride a bike without constantly falling over, that is thanks to the cerebellum, also located in the hindbrain, which is constantly doing math to calculate your posture and precision balance.
So how does it all link up? Well, the brain, together with the spinal cord, makes up your central nervous system. That's the ultimate command center. To actually communicate with the rest of your physical body, it uses the peripheral nervous system. Think of this as a vast, sprawling network of cranial nerves coming straight out of the brain and spinal nerves branching out from the spinal cord. It forms a continuous, beautifully orchestrated loop of biological data.
Section 5. Armor for the system. Now, because this central command is so incredibly vital to your everyday existence, it absolutely cannot just be left exposed. It requires some heavy-duty biological armor.
Nature's solution for protecting this super delicate tissue is genuinely brilliant. First, your brain is locked safely away inside a hard, bony box. We call that the skull. But inside that box, the brain actually floats within a fluid-filled balloon. This fluid acts as a crucial shock absorber in case you ever bump your head. As for the spinal cord, well, if you run your hand down the middle of your back right now, you'll feel your vertebral column. It's a tough, bony, bumpy tunnel designed to keep all those vital spinal nerves perfectly safe from harm.
Section 6. How muscles take action. We have finally arrived at the last step of our signal's journey. The receptor detected the heat, the neuron transmitted the spark, the spinal cord bypassed the brain for a quick decision, and the command has been sent back down the motor nerve. But how does a piece of nervous tissue actually force a big chunk of muscle to physically move? Let's do a little whiteboard visualization in our heads here. Imagine zooming deep into the cells of your bicep muscle with a super powerful microscope. Inside these muscle cells are very special proteins. When that electrical spark from the motor nerve finally hits the muscle fiber, these proteins physically react to the electricity. They instantly change their physical shape and adopt a brand new arrangement. This microscopic chemical shift literally forces the entire muscle cell to shorten in length. When millions of these tiny cells shorten at the exact same fraction of a second, your entire bicep contracts, pulling your arm away from danger. It's all driven by high-speed structural chemistry. As we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a really fascinating question to ponder. We just saw, in microscopic detail, how our animal muscles use electrical impulses from a nervous system to alter special proteins and create a physical movement. But what about something like a touch-me-not plant? You know, when you touch its leaves, they instantly fold up and move away. But here's the catch. A plant doesn't have a single neuron. It has no brain and absolutely no muscle tissue at all. So how on earth is it controlling its movements without any of the hardware we just talked about? Think about that for a bit. It's a wonderful mystery that leads right into the next level of biological coordination. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's explainer. I am incredibly excited to dive into a topic today that is honestly going to completely change how you look at the world around you. We're exploring control and coordination. Now, usually when we think of coordination, we picture an animal, right? Like a cat chasing a mouse, or maybe you instantly pulling your hand away from a super hot stove. To do that, we use our brains, our complex nervous systems, and our muscles. But, well, just take a second and look out your window. The plants out there, they are constantly reacting to their environment too. They are perfectly coordinating their survival without saying a single word, without a brain, and literally without a single muscle. How is that even possible? Let's find out. So here is the core mystery we really want to solve today. Imagine, just for a second, trying to move your arm if you had absolutely no bones, no muscles to pull those bones, and no nerves to send the instruction from your brain. It sounds completely impossible, right? Yet plants manage to move and react to the world every single day. To really understand this, we need to look at two completely different types of movement in the plant kingdom. Okay, let's dive into this by looking at a true marvel of nature. Check out the famous touch-me-not plant. You might know it as the Chuimui or the sensitive plant from the mimosa family. Look at the resting state, and then what happens almost immediately after you just lightly tap its leaves. They fold up. They just droop in a matter of seconds. Now, there's absolutely no growth happening here. This is an immediate response to a stimulus. But since we literally just established that plants have no muscle tissue and no nervous tissue, how on earth does the plant detect the touch, and how do those leaves physically move so fast? Obviously, information has to be communicated from that single point of touch to the rest of the leaf. Well, to move, some cells in the plant must actually change their shape. Animal cells, they use specialized proteins to contract and move. That's exactly how our muscles work. But plants? They use this brilliantly simple alternative. I want you to think of plant cells kind of like tiny water balloons. Instead of flexing a protein muscle, plant cells change their shape by rapidly shifting the amount of water inside them. When the plant senses that touch, an electrical chemical signal travels from cell to cell. This signal essentially forces water out of specific cells at the base of the leaf. And just like a water balloon losing its water, those cells shrink, they collapse, and that causes the whole leaf structure to just quickly droop and fold inwards. Now, that rapid water balloon movement of the sensitive plant is what we call growth-independent movement. It's incredibly fast, and it doesn't involve the plant getting any bigger at all. But let's contrast that with the second type, growth-dependent movement. Have you ever seen a pea plant climbing up a fence using those little curly tendrils? Those tendrils are highly sensitive to touch, too. When they brush against a fence, the part of the tendril that's actually touching the fence slows down its growth. Meanwhile, the side facing away from the fence, that side keeps growing rapidly. This slow, deliberate, uneven growth physically forces the tendril to circle around the object, clinging right to it. So it is movement for sure, but it's slow, permanent, and entirely driven by directed growth. Let's actually visualize this. Let's walk through activity 6.2 from your textbook, step by step, to see this slow directional growth in action. Imagine setting this up right on your classroom lab bench. We take a conical flask, fill it up with water, and cover the neck with a wire mesh. Then we place a few freshly germinated bean seeds right on top of that mesh so they can grow. Next, we place the whole flask inside a cardboard box that has one side completely open, and we position that open side facing a bright sunny window. So think about what's happening. The plant is getting light, but only from one specific direction. And we just leave it there for a few days? And now, what's really fascinating is the undeniable result of our setup. After a few days, you look inside the box, and the shoots, the stems and the leaves, have actively bent their growth path to reach right out towards that window light. But look closely at the roots. They have bent in the exact opposite direction, growing away from the light. And it gets cooler. If we take that flask and turn it completely around so the shoots are now facing the dark back of the box, give it a few more days, and the plant will actively correct itself. It will bend its new shoot growth right back toward the window. The plant is literally reading its environment and physically moving its body through directional growth. So, in science, we have a very specific word for this directional growth movement triggered by the environment. It's called tropism, and it's actually super easy to remember if you just look at the prefixes. What we just saw in the box with the light is phototropism. Photo, of course, meaning light. But plants respond to other things too. Roots naturally grow downward into the earth, and shoots grow upward. That responds to the pull of gravity. That's geotropism. If a root actively grows towards an underground water source, that's hydrotropism. And what if a plant part grows toward a specific chemical, kind of like a pollen tube growing down toward an ovule during reproduction? You guessed it, chemotropism. So we see the clear result, right? The plant bends. But again, we hit a wall here. Without a brain to say, hey, the light is over there to the left, let's lean left, how does the plant actually know which way to bend? How do the cells on one side of the stem know they need to grow faster than the cells on the other side? Well, we need a messenger. And since plants don't have a fast nervous system, they rely entirely on a slow, steady, and just incredibly effective chemical messaging system. Okay, enter our star chemical messenger, a plant hormone called auxin. Imagine the very tip of a growing plant shoot. This tip is constantly creating or synthesizing auxin. When sunlight hits the plant evenly from directly above, the auxin spreads evenly downward and the plant just grows straight up. But, exactly like in our cardboard box experiment, if light comes from just one side, something amazing happens. The auxin physically diffuses and kind of hides away on the shady side of the shoot. So now you have this huge concentration of auxin on the dark side. And what does auxin actually do? It stimulates cells to grow longer. So the cells on the shady side literally stretch out, becoming much longer than the cells on the sunny side. and because they stretch out, it unevenly forces the whole plant stem to tip and bend forward toward the light. It's genius! And this brilliantly illustrates the real power of chemical coordination. But auxin isn't the only player on the field here. Let's look at your essential roster of major plant hormones. First, we have auxins, which we just saw stretching cells longer. Next up are gibberellins, which are actually a lot like auxins and really help in the overall growth of the stem. Then we have cytokinins. These promote rapid cell division, so you're naturally going to find high concentrations of them in areas that are growing fast, like developing fruits and seeds. But plants also need breaks, right? They need signals to stop growing or to prepare for winter. That is where abscisic acid comes in. It's a hormone that actually inhibits growth, and it's responsible for things like the wilting and falling of leaves. So we've seen exactly how plants use these chemical hormones to slowly, carefully guide their growth. But let's pivot back to animals for a second. We have fast nervous systems for quick reactions, but what happens in a massive whole-body emergency? Imagine you are a squirrel out foraging for nuts, and suddenly a predator leaps right out at you. You have a split second to make a choice: fight for your life or run away as fast as possible. Both fighting and running are incredibly complex actions. They require a massive amount of energy, and they involve totally different muscle groups. So how does the squirrel's body instantly prepare every single system for this extreme stress? Well, if that squirrel relied only on nerve impulses, the signal might not reach enough tissues fast enough for a total body override. So the body uses a massive chemical broadcast right alongside the nerves. The adrenal glands instantly secrete a hormone called adrenaline directly into the blood. Think of the bloodstream as a superhighway. The adrenaline travels absolutely everywhere instantly. When it hits the heart, it commands it to beat faster, pumping way more oxygen. It causes muscles around arteries in the skin and digestive system to contract, literally turning off blood flow to your stomach because, hey, you don't need to digest your lunch when you're trying not to be lunch. All that blood is diverted straight to your skeletal muscles. Your diaphragm contracts faster, increasing your breathing rate. This one single chemical messenger perfectly coordinates the entire animal body for a fight-or-flight survival situation. So the crucial takeaway here is that humans and animals rely just as heavily on these chemical messengers. We call this the endocrine system. Let's essentially combine activities 6.3 and 6.4 right now and map out this incredible chemical control board inside us. Up top in the brain area, you have the pituitary gland. That's the master gland, releasing growth hormone to stimulate your body's proper development. Down in your neck is the thyroid gland, which actually uses the iodine from your diet to perfectly regulate your entire body's metabolism. If you've just eaten a huge meal, your pancreas steps up and releases insulin to regulate your blood sugar levels. And for development and reproduction, we have testosterone from the testes and hormones from the ovaries, regulating things like the menstrual cycle. It is a massive, perfectly balanced feedback loop, keeping you alive and functioning every single day. So from the water balloons collapsing in a tiny sensitive plant leaf, to the oxen bending a seedling toward the sun, to the adrenaline pumping through your own veins when you get a sudden fright, life is beautifully, perfectly coordinated by these unseen messengers. Nerves might carry the fast, targeted sparks, but hormones are the broad, powerful broadcast signals that truly shape growth, behavior, and survival. So the next time you look at a plant leaning on a windowsill, I really hope you don't just see a plant. I hope you see the brilliant, silent chemical orchestra playing out inside it. Keep observing, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.
Welcome back, focused learners. You're tuned into our high-yield explainer, and today we're totally decoding the official SSLC 83E evaluation key. Look, if you're a 10th standard student trying to absolutely maximize your marks in Chapter 6 Biology, control and coordination, you are exactly where you need to be. I'm putting on my veteran board exam evaluator hat today. We're going straight to the official marking schemes and previous year's solved papers. We're going to see exactly where students bleed marks and, more importantly, literally exactly what the examiners are dying to see on your answer sheet.
Okay, so here's the blueprint we're running with today. 1-mark MCQ surefire hits, the 2-mark blueprint, the 3-mark brain diagram, and finally, plant coordination and tropisms. Let's dive right into Section 1, 1-mark MCQ surefire hits.
Now, this multiple choice section might seem super easy, right? But listen, examiners absolutely love setting traps here for students who are just rushing against the clock. When you see this classic, board favorite question pop up about reflex actions, you've got to read the options so carefully. They're going to throw distractors at you like moving a chair or feeling a taste, maybe clapping at a function alongside one very specific option about touching a hot pan. Okay,
Look closely at the official key answer here. As an evaluator, I am scanning your paper for literally one word, unknowingly. That single word perfectly captures the unconscious, completely involuntary nature of a reflex action. If an action is deliberate, like clapping or moving a chair, well, that involves the brain's thinking centers, right? But with drawing your hand unknowingly from a hot pan, that's your spinal cord taking charge instantly. Spot that word, lock in your mark, and just move on.
Moving on to Section 2, the 2-mark blueprint, focusing on neurons and hormones. Listen to me carefully here. Do not write massive paragraphs. Evaluators want structured precision. If you get asked to explain the structure of a neuron, writing out any 4 of these official terms guarantees you full marks. Why? Because the board awards exactly half a mark per correct bullet point. It's a simple math game. So, you just mentioned the prominent nucleus in the cell body, the short projections, the dendrites, the long extension called the axon, those little branches at the end called telodendrons, or the fatty myelin sheath. Just give the evaluator 4 clean, sharp bullet points, grab your 2 marks, and save your precious time for the harder questions.
Seriously, take a mental screenshot of this exact table right now. I'm not kidding. Cracking these animal hormone matchups is an absolute goldmine for 2 easy marks year after year. The board loves asking you to name the gland, the hormone, and the function together. So if they ask about regulating blood sugar, bam, you write pancreas and insulin. Regulating carbohydrate, protein, and fat metabolism, that's your thyroid gland and thyroxine. And if they ask what prepares the body for an emergency, adrenal gland and adrenaline. Easy point.
Oh man, right here is a massive common student mistake trap. When you're asked for the differences between the central and peripheral nervous systems, so many students just mix up their roles under pressure. Keep this straight. The central nervous system, which is your brain and spinal cord, integrates the data. It's the boss. It receives the info and makes the decisions. The peripheral nervous system, made of all those cranial and spinal nerves, is just the communication highway. It facilitates the transfer of the boss's orders to the rest of the body. Do not swap their jobs.
All right, let's step up to Section 3, a 3-mark masterclass on the human brain.
I cannot stress this enough. This question is an absolute favorite for examiners. What you're looking at brilliantly illustrates the exact schematic level of detail the board actually expects you to replicate for full credit. Notice how it isn't some highly complex artistic masterpiece. It's just a clean, clearly defined schematic that shows the major regions. Please, don't spend 20 minutes drawing this and shading it in. Spend your time making sure the proportions look right and the specific regions are clearly identifiable.
You're fighting for 3 total marks on this one. So let's actually break down exactly how the evaluator distributes those marks across your drawing, because let's be real, half marks can make or break your grade in the SSLC exams.
Check this out. The official key answer gives you 2 marks simply for putting down a neat, accurate diagram. That final mark, 1 full mark, comes purely from accurately pinpointing the labels. In this specific key we're looking at, they asked for the cerebrum and the pons, giving half a mark for each. Guys, if you draw the most beautiful brain in the world but forget to draw those label lines, you cap out at 2 out of 3. Always, always double-check which specific parts the question is actually asking you to label. And hey, while we're on the subject of the brain, let's tackle another super common trap. Under exam pressure, students routinely swap the functions of the cerebrum and the cerebellum. You've got to drill this into your mind. The cerebrum is the center of thinking and voluntary actions. The cerebellum, that maintains posture, balance, and the precision of those voluntary activities. Here's a quick memory trick I always tell my students. Just picture a tightrope walker balancing a shiny little bell. Cerebellum is for balancing. You'll never forget it now.
Moving on to our final stop, Section 4. Plant coordination and tropisms. Now remember, plants don't have a nervous system like we do, right? Their control relies entirely on chemical compounds called phytohormones, and the board just loves asking you to name 3 of them that specifically promote growth. So use this quick memory trick. All grow constantly. That'll instantly help you recall auxins, gibberellins, and cytokinins is your 3 growth promoters. Write those 3 big words down clearly, and boom, that's an easy path to full marks.
Finally, let's talk tropisms. When a question asks you to define a tropism for those application marks, you absolutely must explicitly state the stimulus. For example, with phototropism, the phrase "towards light" is literally where your mark lives. The official key defines it as growth of the shoot towards light. Listen, if you just write the plant moving, you will lose the mark. You've got to be super specific about both the direction and the actual stimulus causing it. So, we've covered the major traps, the memory tricks, and the exact rubrics your evaluators are holding in their hands. The real question is, are you ready to step into that exam hall and completely crush the 83E biology section? Stay focused, keep your answers sharp and structured, and as you walk into that room, just remember, your very own central nervous system is integrating all this data right now to help you succeed. So how are you going to use it to secure that top rank? Go put it to work.